You ever find yourself thinking you know how the world works, and then, boom, one flight, one stranger, one petty little power play blows your whole sense of reality to pieces? Yeah, that happened. I mean, the only thing I thought I'd have to worry about on that Chicago flight was whether the champagne was cold and if my business partner, Daniel, could keep his nerves in check for the contract meeting that was about to change our lives. But instead, I wound up in a front row seat to the most twisted game of power, revenge, and justice I've ever witnessed. One where the smallest detail, a single recording in my pocket, tipped the scales on a $47 million deal and sent a whole criminal empire crashing down. Let me back up a sec. We'd busted our asses for years, late nights, bad coffee, running code in an old lakeside cabin just to keep Sky Grid afloat. This was our shot. First class, all the perks, Daniel and me on our way to lock down a deal with Aero United Airlines that had put us on the map for good. But the minute we hit the gate, something was off. They skipped Daniel's name at priority boarding. Gate agent looked like she'd seen a ghost, glancing past us to some guy in a suit lurking by the counter. Her hands shook so much she could barely type. "Sorry, sir. Seems your VIP status just vanished." "System glitch," she mumbled, but her eyes kept darting to that mystery man. You know what I mean? That feeling when your gut screams something's about to go sideways? So I did what I always do in high-stakes moments. I slipped my hand into my bag and hit record on that little device I use for meetings. A good habit, as it turns out. On board, things only got weirder. Daniel, usually cool as steel, looked like he was seeing ghosts, too. He whispered, "I don't like this. That woman at the gate, something was off." Before I could push, all hell broke loose. That's when Karen Silvers strolled in, every inch the ice queen in a designer suit, HOA badge swinging, her son Ethan trailing her like a shadow. I'd heard of people who could change the temperature in a room, but Karen, she made the air freeze solid. Crew snapped to attention. Passengers shrank back. Even the captain gave her a nod. She eyed Daniel, and you could feel it. This was a setup. And then she did what people like Karen do. She started issuing orders. "My son can't sit in his assigned seat. Medical necessity. That man," she jabbed a finger at Daniel, "needs to move. Now." The flight attendant fumbled her words, tried to explain policy, but Karen just flashed her gold-plated Pine Valley Estates HOA badge like it was a cop's shield. "I think you'll find cooperation benefits everyone, especially those who value their employment." Real subtle, right? Daniel went paper white. Not the normal, dealing with a Karen kind of white. More like old trauma rising from the grave white. The way Karen held court, the way everyone danced to her tune, made one thing clear. This was no accident. Daniel and I weren't just dealing with a power-tripping board president. We were in her crosshairs, and for reasons I didn't yet understand. She went full lawyer mode, rattling off ADA statutes, waving a stack of doctor's notes for Ethan's supposed sensory issues, all while dropping names, captains, executives, people whose jobs and immigration status she could apparently wreck on a whim. The worst part? Nobody stopped her. Flight crew froze. Other passengers pretended to be asleep, and Karen just tightened the screws, making veiled threats about job security, residency, even federal investigations. And she kept glancing at Daniel with a smile so cold it could curdle milk. "Hello again, Mr. Parker. This time, you won't be getting away." That was it. The penny dropped. This wasn't random. It was a trap. She started throwing around names. Robert Clean, some procurement big shot at Aero United. "Some partnerships just aren't worth the headache," she said, almost singing the words. Daniel nearly fainted. And right then, her son Ethan, this poor, pale kid who looked like he wanted to sink through the floor, finally whispered, "I'm sorry, but not to Karen." To Daniel. That's when I knew, whatever had happened before, it ran deep. "Let's talk about Pine Valley Estates," Daniel said, his voice trembling, then hardening. "Let's talk about what you did to my family." The whole cabin fell silent as he laid it out. How Karen's HOA ran them out of their dream home with bogus violations, how their 8-year-old lost her friends, how his wife Sarah sank into depression. And then he did the thing that changed everything. He called Sarah, right there in the aisle, speaker on for all to hear, asking about the FBI contact investigating the HOA. Karen went pale. Sarah confirmed, "We have enough evidence for both civil rights violations and financial fraud. The FBI's building a case." Pine Valley's at the top of the list. That's when Karen's mask cracked, and for the first time, her voice shook. But Daniel wasn't finished. Tell Detective Morrison that Karen Silvers just threatened an airline captain's family using her HOA position. He told the story of their little girl packing up her room, asking why the mean lady said we didn't belong, of the nightmares that never left. And Karen, for once, was speechless. Daniel's voice had gone from victim to avenger. But Karen, even cornered, had claws. "You have no idea how deep this network goes," she hissed. Pine Valley isn't just an HOA. It's a system for acquiring real estate from families who don't fit. 47 families, $23 million in property flipped in 3 years. Clean's procurement contacts let us target airline employees, pressure them out, and resell at a profit. She was so sure of herself, so proud of the scam. Shell companies, kickbacks, you name it. Even now, she believed she was untouchable. And then, twist, out of nowhere, a woman in 4B, plain clothes, quiet the whole flight, stood up and introduced herself as Margaret Cross, senior counsel for Aero United. She'd heard every word. Karen tried to bluster, but Margaret just smiled and asked her to repeat her confession. Karen realized too late. Her arrogance, her threats, her whole operation had just been broadcast to the one person who could make it all stick. Margaret, calm as you please, revealed the next bombshell. Robert Clean had already been arrested 20 minutes ago in Atlanta. The FBI had been on them for 8 months. Karen's face, that's a look I'll never forget. She knew the game was over. Margaret confirmed what Daniel suspected. Sky Grid had been approached by the FBI. My recording device was evidence, and our deal had been bait in a federal sting. And then Ethan, the kid who'd watched all this go down, stepped forward. "I told them everything, Mom. About the fake records, about Uncle Robert. I couldn't let you hurt more people." Karen's world fell apart. Margaret's tone softened for Ethan, but she made it clear the entire cabin was full of undercover agents. Even the captain had been cooperating, recording every word from the cockpit. They arrested Karen right there, reading her rights as she screamed about political connections and how she'd never see a day in prison. Margaret just smiled. "Your partners are talking. Your calls are recorded. This is the largest housing discrimination case in federal history." Handcuffs clicked, and as Karen was led away, Daniel knelt down to Ethan, telling him he was the bravest kid he'd ever met. Fast forward 3 months. SkyGrid's contract, saved, and doubled, now rolling out security systems nationwide. Pine Valley Estates, under new management, every family compensated, all the old discrimination wiped from the books. Karen got 25 years, no parole. Clean, 35. The money they stole went back to the families. Daniel's little girl, Emma, is back in her old room, her mom smiling again for the first time in years. Ethan, he's got a new family, a big sister in Emma, and mentors in Daniel and Sarah who'll make sure he never goes back to that life. The ripples spread, airline workers protected, federal laws changed, and every week, more families find the courage to stand up and say, "Not here, not anymore." So here's the thing. Sometimes you think the world runs on people like Karen, pulling strings behind the curtain, but it doesn't. It runs on folks like Daniel, who refuse to stay silent, on kids like Ethan, who choose the truth, and yeah, on tired old tech guys like me, who know when to hit record instead of hitting the panic button. If you've made it this far, let me ask you, what would you have done in our shoes? When justice calls, are you ready to answer? Drop your thoughts below. And hey, if this story hit home, share it, comment. Let's hear your HOA horror stories, your justice wins. Because sometimes, the smallest voice in the room is the one that finally brings down the house.